Deep in the industrial sector of Gurgaon, the graveyard shift is an isolating experience. The sprawling highway infrastructure empties out, leaving a vast, quiet concrete landscape cut off from the rest of the city. Inside Saffron BPO, the environment was strictly regulated. The floor was a dense, endless grid of identical cubicles, illuminated by the harsh white glow of thick CRT monitors and filled with the low, constant hum of scripted conversations. Sitting directly adjacent to our narrator was Rose. She was the model employee. She arrived precisely on time, placed her bag on her chair in total silence, and executed her calls flawlessly without ever initiating small talk. In a high-volume call center, every second of an agent's time is digitally tracked and scripted. The environment is so rigid that any deviation from the routine becomes immediately obvious. The first deviation occurred at 12:30 a.m. Rose received an incoming ping, but instead of the standard 10-minute customer resolution, she kept her line open for hours, whispering into her headset. Concerned for her safety, the shift supervisor tapped directly into her audio feed to monitor it. He didn't hear a demanding client. Instead, he heard absolute heavy dead air on the other end of the line. The moment the line was tapped, Rose abruptly cut the connection. She shot a look of pure rage across the floor, grabbed her bag, and stormed out of the building without speaking a single word. She never came back. After 3 days of absence, the supervisor called the emergency contact listed on Rose's joining form. Her parents answered. They were utterly confused. They explained that their daughter, Rose, had passed away 8 years prior. The team was left with a timeline that didn't make sense. If Rose had been dead for years, then someone, or something, had been clocking in, taking calls, and hitting targets right next to them every single night, unseen. Once the staff realized what had been sitting beside them, the atmosphere fractured. Security guards began logging reports of heavy, deliberate footsteps pacing down entirely empty corridors. Then the anomalies became visual. An agent washing her hands looked up into the washroom mirror and saw a woman standing directly behind her. She had Rose's face, but her eyes were a solid blood vessel red. When the agent spun around, the room was empty. The presence soon bled into the building's electrical grid. Motion sensor lights in the staff pantry began aggressively snapping on at random, triggered despite the room being completely locked down. IT checked the cameras to see who was tripping the sensors. The footage showed a vacant pantry, but a heavy, dark shadow seemed to physically peel away from the water dispenser, expanding into the distinct silhouette of a woman. The climax of these electrical breaches happened directly in the cubicle farm. One night, the blank monitor at Rose's abandoned desk flickered to life. The login prompt appeared, and without a physical hand on the keyboard, her specific agent ID typed itself in. Standard ghosts are typically described as echoes of the past. But typing a password and navigating a secure server suggests something more deliberate. Whatever was at that desk knew exactly how to use the tools of the office. The shift from structural anomalies to targeted attacks isolated the narrator's friend, Sammer. He was working alone in his section during the 3 a.m. slump, the most vulnerable hour of the graveyard shift. His headset chimed with an internal ping. He clicked answer, and a familiar voice cut through the static. "Hello, Rose this side. How can I help you?" Sammer slammed the phone down. Instantly, the overhead fluorescence violently flickered and died, dropping the entire floor into darkness. In the moonlight spilling through the glass, he watched the empty chair at Rose's desk slowly spinning on its axis. Panicking, he stumbled toward the pantry to catch his breath. In the pitch black near the water coolers, a voice right behind his ear whispered, "You forgot me." He turned to find the red-eyed silhouette standing inches away. The haunting had mutated. No longer a general building glitch, it was a predatory, personalized attack on a specific employee. Sammer bolted for the exit. He hammered the call button, threw himself into the elevator, and slammed the button for the ground floor, desperate to reach the street. The digital counter ticked down to 0, but when the metal doors parted, they didn't reveal the marble lobby. They opened into a cold, fog-choked expanse of dirt and broken headstones. Dozens of rotting, hollow-eyed figures stood in the mist, staring directly at him. As the elevator doors refused to close, the corpses began a slow drag toward the cab. Leading them was Rose. He scrambled backward, mashing the control panel and squeezing his eyes shut as the figures breached the threshold. When he opened his eyes a fraction of a second later, the morning shift was stepping into a perfectly normal, brightly lit corporate elevator. He was alone, curled in the corner. Samer was left shaking in the corner of a perfectly clean elevator. In a matter of seconds, the modern building had vanished, replaced by a glimpse of something far older and more grounded in the soil. Samer and the narrator resigned the next morning and never returned. Plagued by ongoing incidents, Saffron BPO eventually shuttered that office entirely, abandoning the floor to the dust. The narrator aligned the office blueprint with the property's history, finding a disturbing match. The commercial block was constructed directly over a demolished cemetery. The cubicle lines aligned perfectly with the old cemetery plots. Rose had simply reclaimed her spot on the grid. Leaving the building didn't break the connection. Months later, at his new job, Samer's cell phone rang at exactly 3:45 a.m. The caller ID displayed the landline for the permanently disconnected Saffron BPO. When he answered, he heard Rose ask how she could help him. A corporation can pour concrete over a burial ground, and an employee can hand in their resignation. But once a link is forged with a place like that, the office phone never truly stops ringing.